Welcome back to some more interesting questions. As you can see, I got a little upgrades going along. I got the interesting questions right here on this side, and I got the peace sign on that side. So yeah, I'm just kind of adding a few things to add some ambiance to the podcast. Suggestions from friends, people, but you want to keep interesting questions. You want it to be interesting, right? So I I couldn't disagree. I said, yeah, let's keep interesting questions interesting. Excuse me. Let's add something to the ambiance. And so we got the sign here, got the peace sign there, and so this video, we all knew it was coming. If you've watched any videos on my channel, Stonehenge was coming. It's monumentous. It is a very interesting structure. It's a very odd structure. We don't exactly know who built it exactly. There are theories, obviously, who built it. But more intriguing is how it was built. Like, how did they build? How did, copper chisel, society build something as monumentous as Stonehenge? So that's a very interesting question. The video that I'm going to do the commentary on is a video that's basically kind of proclaiming that they've kind of figured it out. They've figured out how Stonehenge was built. So it's like it's like the pyramids of Giza. There's so many different theories. There's like the log theory, and then there was, like where they had like something where they would like drag it along sand and it would slide along sand. And then there's the Nile River theory, which I've heard that one too, where they were able to create irrigation that would flood the Nile, and they were able to float the stones into place. I should probably do a video on that because that one seemed to me like the most intriguing one, of where they would just flood the Nile and they had the stones on rafts because they brought them on rafts. We know that. This stone was quarried quite a distance away from the pyramids. So this is about Stonehenge. So I don't want to go on a rant about the Giza pyramids because we'll just be here all night. Me talking about the Giza pyramids and how amazing they are, and they're just amazing structures. They're unbelievable. And I'm gonna have another video coming up that's gonna be on the Giza pyramids. So like the channel, subscribe. I need more subscribers. And all of you who have subscribed, I really appreciate your support. But I also appreciate you viewers. I appreciate you guys viewing the channel. But like I said, if you like this video, please like, please subscribe, and share it. If you have family members or friends or whatever who are intrigued by, the content that I'm putting on this channel, share it with them. Send it to your uncle, your aunt, your cousin, your best friend, your neighbor. Your neighbor's like, oh man, oh, he likes pyramids, or he likes this, or he likes UFOs or something paranormal or whatever. And that's the purpose of the channel. The purpose of the channel is to be diverse. It's meant to be about a lot of different subjects that are interesting questions. That's the purpose of the channel. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm cut myself off, and we'll go ahead and we'll get to the video right now.
pyramids in the world elicit the mystery and wonder that Stonehenge does. For hundreds of years, archaeologists and historians have puzzled over the ancient ruins, trying to piece together the truth behind its origin. At last, though, modern science has caught up with the ancient mystery, and we finally have a pretty good idea as to who created this wonder of the ancient world. For anyone living under a very large rock for the last 500 years and doesn't know, Stonehenge is an ancient.
I also want to give a shout out to infographics, the infographics show, for making this video. Shout out to them for me to do my commentary on. So check out infographics channel. They got a lot of subscribers, so it must be a really good channel. So check them out.
Site in the UK made up of pillars of rock laid out in a circle. The remains showed that the entire site was once ringed with massive stone columns, which were themselves topped with slabs of stone that completely encircled the monument. Inside, scientists suspect that there was once a smaller circle of stones, of which only a few pillars remain, also topped by a massive stone slab. While the site is relatively simple in its construction and certainly pales in comparison with wonders such as the pyramids of Egypt, what is impressive is that Stonehenge is estimated to have been built over 5,000 years ago, when humans were thought to have been largely using nothing more than simple bone and antler tools. The Neolithic monument is also thought to have taken 1,500 years to complete, with construction being taken up by various groups of people who continually added to the original.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I had never heard that before, that it took 1,500 years to complete. I never heard that theory before. But I mean, people have a lot of time in their hands. Let's be realistic. They didn't have cell phones, and they didn't have TVs or video games, or people had a lot of time in their hands. So I mean, we might not think outside of the box, in the sense is that may be a very sound theory, that this structure was built over 1,500 years. Why? Because if you really stop and think about it, is they didn't have all the distractions we have today. When it comes to building structures and so on and so forth. So in a way, the fact that it may have taken 1,500 years may make sense, and how it was produced, because we always think of stuff. Well, we have a 3-year project to build this this skyscraper or whatever. They probably weren't thinking in those terms, So that does make sense.
Site. The first stage was a massive circular ditch and bank dug on the Salisbury Plain by Neolithic Britons using deer antlers for tools. They also included deep pits inside of that circular construction, now known as the Aubrey Holes after John Aubrey, the 17th century antiquarian who discovered them. It's believed that the holes once held up a ring of timber posts standing upright, creating a circle of timber within the larger circular ditch. This site remained standing until a few hundred years later, when more builders arrived and decided to remodel. Rather than use the timbers for their construction, they hauled 80 bluestones, of which 43 remained standing, and laid them out in either a horseshoe or circular formation around the site. Lastly, during the third and final phase of construction, which took place around 2000 BC, sandstone slabs were arranged into a ring formation around the entire site, with some being assembled into the iconic 3-piece structures called trilithons. A few trilithons remain standing inside the formation today, and it's these structures that have become a visual representation of Stonehenge for millions of people around the world today. Work would continue for the next 400 years, with the large stones being repositioned as new people modified the original site. What's particularly impressive about Stonehenge is that the majority of the construction took place well before the invention of the wheel. That means that the sandstone blocks weighing over 40 tons had to be transported from up to 25 miles away, while the smaller bluestones, which weighed up to 4 tons each, were originally sourced.
Yeah, I mean, how would you transport? What's weird is, like when I was like a teenager, I remember seeing pictures of Stonehenge, or like hearing about it, or so on and so forth. It probably wasn't until like I was in my mid-20s that I actually realized how massive, how huge those stones are. And it just blew my, and I was like, what the hell? Like, oh my God. I was like, I didn't know those stones were that big. Like, I didn't know. I thought it was like a small, like, I thought the stones were like maybe like 6 foot or 7 foot high or something. It was this little small structure. But when like I saw people standing next to the stones, and when I actually got that perspective on Stonehenge, it just blew my mind. I was like, what in the hell? Like, exactly. How would you move solid stone like that? That it could weigh 20, 30, 40, 50 tons and prop it into place. And you haven't even, what they're saying is they hadn't even invented the wheel. And they did this. So that alone blows my mind.
From over 200 miles away. How in the world did Neolithic builders get these giant stones into position without even the use of the wheel? The longest standing theory is that the stones were transported using sledges and rollers made out of fallen tree trunks, with each stone riding atop a bunch of greased logs, which would be moved in front of the stone as it traveled over and past a section of logs. This would have allowed the builders to simply push or drag the huge stones over long distances, though it would certainly have been incredibly labor intensive. They then could have transferred the stones into huge rafts and floated them along the Welsh coast and up to the River Avon toward the construction site. More modern refinements to the theory has builders using teams of oxen to drag the stones along grooved planks, or transporting them in giant wicker baskets or on all kinds of ball bearings. However, in the 1970s,
one of the theories, though, behind structures such as Stonehenge was that there were giants. It's biblical. It's in the Bible. The Bible talks about the Nephilim, and it talks about tribes. You have David and Goliath. Where does the term come from? It's biblical that David slew Goliath, and Goliath was a giant who stood between 10 to 13 feet tall or whatever. So one of the theories behind these megalithic structures that you find all over the earth, they're everywhere. They are literally on every continent. They are everywhere. And is that one of the theories behind this is that giants, a pre-flood society, what is it, the Younger Dryas period, like Graham Hancock talks about, is that there were societies pre-flood that were destroyed. It even talks about that's in the Bible too. So, I mean, I'm not trying to like Bible thump people here. I don't, I grew up Catholic, whatever, but I don't read the Bible. I'm not a very religious person. I'm more of a spiritual person. But these stories also, they're in Hindu text, ancient Chinese text. They exist all around the world. There was a massive flood or whatever that kind of wiped out a society. They think that could have been Atlantis, and maybe there were giants. Maybe there were all these different cultures all over the planet that were producing, these megalithic structures all around the world. I mean, that's a theory. That's just a theory, but it's very intriguing that all these cultures talk about a flood, and then they also speak of giants. So, that's very intriguing.
Geologists began to get in on the debate of how the mighty stones were transported. They suggested that it wasn't humans who lugged these stones dozens or hundreds of miles, but rather that it was ancient glaciers. Well known to uplift rocks and transport them hundreds of miles, these glacial erratics, as they're known, pop up all over the world and are remnants of the last ice age. They proposed that perhaps glaciers had deposited a large number of raw stones required to build Stonehenge, though the theory isn't particularly popular amongst mainstream geologists. archaeologists. Never mind how it was built though, who were the people that actually built Stonehenge? Back when mythology was considered history, it was believed that Stonehenge was the handiwork of King Arthur's friend and confidant, the wizard Merlin. Sometime in the mid-5th century, hundreds of British nobles were killed by Saxon barbarians and then buried on the Salisbury Plain, which was at the time made out of stakes. And in order to honor the fallen men, King Aureolus Ambrosius, the uncle of King Arthur, ordered that a memorial be built on the site to honor their deaths. The king thus sent an army to Ireland to fetch a stone circle known as the Giant's Ring, which ancient giants had built from magical African bluestones. The Irish, defending the ring, were defeated, but the men could not move the massive stones. Thus, Merlin used his magic to move the giant stones across the sea and onto the site they stand on today. According to the legend, King Ambrosius and King Arthur's father Uther remain buried there to this day. When people started believing in myths,
So, like what it's saying, about King Arthur, and Merlin, the wizard. So, hypothetically, imagine Merlin was an extraterrestrial. Look at that. I'm just saying, just contemplate that. I'm not saying that he was. I'm saying is just stop and think. Maybe he was an extraterrestrial and he had the ability to move the structure. That's all I'm saying. That's it.
less and science more, the monument was attributed to the Saxons, the Danes, the Romans, the Greeks, and even the Egyptians. Eventually, in the 17th century, archaeologist John Aubrey claimed that the monument was the work of Celtic high priests known as Druids, and the theory largely stuck for hundreds of years. Even today, many individuals who identify as modern Druids gather at the site to hold rituals. Yet, sadly for them, modern science has at last determined that it was definitely not the Druids who built Stonehenge. Stonehenge, it turns out, has an origin as complicated as its construction, and after the careful observation of dating bones and tools and other artifacts discovered on the site, archaeologists now believe that there was actually no one people who are responsible for building Stonehenge, but that rather the monument was a community project of sorts, with various groups of people working on it at different times. First were Neolithic agrarian humans, likely the original inhabitants of the British Isles, though some genetic research hints that these original inhabitants were actually displaced by invaders from the mainland. Then the descendants of the original Britons likely added to the site, followed by immigrants from the European continent, with some hypothesized to have come from as far as modern-day Turkey. Stonehenge, it turns out, has no one source.
But at the end of the day, regardless of where these people came from and who you're saying built all this, they were human beings, right? Like they were all physical human beings, just like you and me and everyone else. How would that change? Like how would that affect? Oh, well, this structure, it's gonna get built a lot faster, and we're gonna lift these stones a lot faster, or what? Like that's irrelevant. The engineering of the structure and the weight of these stones or whatever have, like, the fact that people came from other regions or whatever have absolutely no effect on how the structure was built. These were, according to them, these were primitive people with, like, they hadn't even invented the wheel when this thing was built. So how many people there or where they came from is irrelevant to how the structure was engineered or it was physically built. So I don't know where they're going with that in particular, but to me that makes no sense. I don't know. I'm kind of confused by that.
But rather is a hodgepodge of different cultures who likely all appropriated it to suit their own needs. We might never know why it was originally built, but it's clear that as new groups of people came across the site, they were quick to modify or add to the construction in order to suit their own needs. The site is thought to have served purposes related to astronomy, calendar keeping, religious ceremonies, and even as a royal monument, with its function throughout the years as varied as its original builders. While today it serves as a tourist destination for people who come from all over the world to marvel at the ingenuity of our ancestors. This is, of course, the official story, and other sources claim that Stonehenge is, you guessed it, alien in origin. Some believe that Stonehenge is part of a global navigation network used by alien ships, with sites that include the pyramids and the Nazca Lines in South America. Apparently, ancient aliens needed visual signals by which to navigate the spacecraft that they traversed the galaxy with because they never quite developed GPS technology. A very curious technological misstep. Yet others believe that Stonehenge is the
Come on. Aliens never developed GPS, bro. Come on, dude. Really? I mean, the fact that we have so many satellites in space. Let's get realistic, people. Yes. It is a progression of societies and the progression of their technology where they're like, oh, we still use landmarks, aliens who have achieved interstellar space travel, who could travel anywhere in our galaxy and maybe even in our universe. They didn't develop GPS. So we just use landmarks. That is absolutely preposterous. That's not how evolution works. Even the evolution of human beings is basically is systematic. The evolution of technology is also systematic. You have to go through processes to get to the place where you're at, where we're at today. It took us, because I'll tell you right now, in the 1980s, we barely had microwaves and we barely had VHS. Now look where we're at digitally. 35, 40 years later. It's a very different world than what it was then.
The site of a major vortex which spews out some kind of energy from the Earth. These believers claim that ancient humans could identify and tap into these magical vortexes. Yet somehow, for some reason, despite being able to land spacecraft on Mars, modern humanity is apparently unable to discover the same magical vortices that primitive humans did. For our part, after careful examination by our team of leading researchers, archaeologists, and historians, we here at the Infographics Show have deduced that Stonehenge is an interdimensional aperture through which space aliens from the Zeti Reticuli Nebula will one day invade in order to feed on our delicious brains. And seriously, who are you going to listen to? Leading researchers and scientists or the internet? We thought so.
So, I mean, my final opinion on this is, you know, the world is a very crazy place. There's a lot of crazy structures. There's a lot of weird things out there. There's even modern structures. I mean, could you imagine, let's say there was a horrible catastrophe that just wiped out the planet. And let's say a civilization 3,000 years from now, they found the Statue of Liberty, right? Which is purely made of copper. It was given as a gift from the French to the U.S. And now imagine they found that in a ruin. They're gonna clean that thing up. They're gonna decorate it. They're gonna do all kinds of stuff. They're gonna think, oh, well, look at this monument. It looks crazy. Like, you know, it's like what we do with the pyramids or whatever. It was probably an ancient, like, pre you know, like current society. And what we know now is, because what we really don't know, we don't really know much about the Earth. We know about seismic activity. We know about certain things about the Earth, but the Earth is a very crazy place. We have land masses moving around. They're moving. I understand, like, you go, well, Daniel, they're moving at centimeters, per week or something. They're still moving. The Earth is a living object. It's alive. And we piss the Earth off. Who knows what's going to happen, and how the Earth is going to act and react to what we have been doing to it. And weather-wise, we're trying to manipulate weather, or we're trying to create seismic activity, or we're fracking. We're doing a bunch of different stuff that we don't know what the repercussions are for our actions and how this is going to come back at us. We really don't know. And it's like, it's almost like a drug addict. Doing drugs for all kinds of years, and then eventually you get sick, you get cancer from the repercussions of your actions. That's the thing that we don't understand, is we don't know, by the things we're doing currently to our planet, and how it's going to affect us dramatically in the future. So, I mean, on that note, thank you guys for joining me. This video was very intriguing. I love Stonehenge. I love monolithic structures all around the world. And I hope you do too. And I hope you enjoy the video. Um, you know, thanks for visiting. Interesting questions. And peace and love to you guys. Thanks for watching the video. I'm going to see you in the next one.